Forget about your four-leaf clovers and broken mirrors, because in the Wild West, people believed in some truly bizarre things. Imagine a haunted mine that could drive a man insane, or a ghostly cowboy who appeared just to make sure you didn't cheat at cards. Think carrying a rabbit's foot for luck is strange? Just wait until you hear what prospectors buried under their bedrolls. Out here, where law was scarce and danger lurked behind every cactus, folks clung to any superstition that might give them a fighting chance, or at least explain their rotten luck. Cowboys, outlaws, and gold miners had their fill of strange rituals, wild legends, and downright ridiculous customs. Some thought a coyote's howl could summon a storm, while others avoided a certain canyon, claiming it was cursed by a prospector who refused to share his lucky pickaxe. We're about to dive headfirst into some of the most outlandish superstitions and spine-tingling legends to ever come out of the American frontier. Watch out for black cats or black horses crossing your path. Number 1. The superstition of the rabbit's foot. If there was one thing the rough-and-tumble cowboys of the Wild West believed in as much as their six-shooters, it was luck. And nothing screamed luck like the severed foot of a rabbit. Yes, you heard that right. These hardened men and women, who faced shootouts, rattlesnake bites, and the most unforgiving landscapes, believed their best chance of survival lay in the fluffy foot of a poor bunny. Strange? Absolutely. But in the Wild West, where you couldn't just stroll into town for a store-bought charm, a rabbit's foot would have to do. The belief in the rabbit's foot dates back to ancient Europe and Africa. But when it crossed the Atlantic, it took on a life of its own. Life on the frontier wasn't easy, and folks clung to any belief that might tip fate in their favor. Cowboys, in particular, found the rabbit's foot appealing. If a rabbit could outrun predators and survive in the wild, maybe carrying a piece of that swift little creature could help them dodge bullets, find gold, or at least win a poker game. But not just any rabbit's foot would do. Oh no, there were rules. To be truly lucky, the foot had to come from the left hind leg of a rabbit caught under a full moon. Extra points if the bunny was killed by a cross-eyed person. Once you had your lucky charm, you carried it everywhere, in your pocket, tied to your horse's saddle, or hanging around your neck. It was the 1800s equivalent of a smartphone, but instead of checking the weather, it warded off bad luck. Like most superstitions, though, the rabbit's foot was less about magic and more about people trying to control their unpredictable, dangerous lives. In a world where every day could be your last, it didn't hurt to have a little luck hanging by your side, even if it was just the dried-up foot of an unlucky rabbit. Number 2. Never close a knife someone else opened. Among the quirkiest of frontier beliefs was this: never, under any circumstances, close a knife that someone else opened. It sounds harmless enough, but in the Wild West, this superstition was serious business, causing tension in more than a few saloons and ranches. The belief was that closing someone else's knife would bring bad luck to both of you. Bad luck that went far beyond a busted poker hand or a burned meal. We're talking serious misfortune, like a rattlesnake bite, a wild horse throwing you, or a cattle stampede. In a place as wild and unpredictable as the West, no one was eager to tempt fate any further. Some cowboys even believed it could sever the friendship between the two people involved, which was a big deal in a place where trust and loyalty were as vital as your next breath. The origins of this superstition likely lie in both practicality and deep-rooted folklore. In a land where survival hung by a thread, every little superstition mattered. Knives were indispensable tools on the frontier, serving as weapons, utensils, and tools for survival. Sharp and often dangerous, they were also family heirlooms, passed down through generations, making them far more than mere objects. Handing someone an open knife wasn't just a casual gesture, it was symbolic, an act that demanded respect. Closing it, without being asked, could be seen as presumptuous, even disrespectful, especially if the knife had been opened for a specific purpose, like mending gear or preparing a meal. Now, onto Pecos Bill, the wildest cowboy legend the frontier ever saw. Forget what you think you know about daring cowboys, because Pecos Bill's story is the ultimate tall tale. Born in 1830 and separated from his family as a baby, Pecos wasn't raised by humans. No, according to legend, He was taken in by coyotes, growing up in the wild with a pack of predators as his family. That's right, a cowboy raised by coyotes. Pecos learned toughness, resilience, and how to survive from his animal kin, making him fearless in a way no ordinary man could be. One of his most famous feats? Lassoing a tornado. While others ran for cover, Pecos Bill rode that tornado all the way to Kansas, proving to the storm who was boss. And the tornado? It was so impressed, it came back to visit him, just to remind the world of their epic showdown. But that's not all. Pecos Bill didn't stop at taming tornadoes. He wrestled mountain lions too, but not just any lion. He tamed it, named it Sassafras, and turned it into his loyal pet. Imagine having a mountain lion as your cattle herder. Well, Pecos did. And just when you think it couldn't get crazier, there's the tale of Pecos roping the Rio Grande River because he was bored. He tied the entire river into a knot and used it as a watering trough for his cattle. That's the kind of boredom only a legend like Pecos Bill could cure. But even legends have hearts. Pecos Bill fell head over heels for Slewfoot Sue, a wild, fearless woman who matched him in every way. Their love story was as legendary as his exploits. In the end, after a lifetime of defying the impossible, Pecos Bill did what no cowboy had done before. He rode off into the sunset, literally. His horse carried him into the sky, leaving behind only a cloud of dust and a legacy too big to fade. And then there's Bigfoot, the elusive creature of the Wild West. You might think Bigfoot is a modern-day mystery, but tales of this hairy giant date back to Native American legends long before blurry photographs and grainy videos. The Salish people called it Saskits, meaning wild man. In the mid-19th century, as settlers pushed deeper into uncharted lands, they began reporting sightings of a massive ape-like creature with footprints bigger than a horse's hoof, and howls that sent shivers down a wolf's spine. Some frontiermen swore they'd stumbled upon Bigfoot's lair, finding caves filled with berries and nuts. Others told of entire homesteads abandoned after hearing the terrifying sounds of trees crashing and unearthly roars echoing through the night. The more people fled, the more the legend grew, cementing Bigfoot as one of the frontier's greatest mysteries. Next, we ride to the haunted Bullock Hotel in Deadwood, South Dakota, a place where the past refuses to rest. Built by the legendary sheriff Seth Bullock in 1895, the hotel was supposed to be a haven of comfort, but soon gained a reputation for being haunted by its own founder. Guests and staff have reported seeing Bullock's stern apparition roaming the halls in his trademark black suit, as if still overseeing his investment. Some say he's keeping a ghostly eye on the hotel's operations, while others believe he's frustrated that no one listens to his advice. In the ballroom, phantom piano music drifts through the air, accompanied by the clinking of glasses, as if a ghostly party is forever in full swing. The haunting is so vivid. One night a clerk heard a raucous gathering in an empty room. When he went to investigate, a voice calmly told him, "We're just having a little party." Understandably, that clerk cut his shift short. Finally, we arrive at the chilling tale of El Muerto, the headless horseman of the West. This notorious bandit didn't just die. He became something far worse. After being decapitated by vengeful lawmen, El Muerto's spirit returned to the desert, riding a horse under the cloak of night, searching for those foolish enough to cross his path. His headless figure galloped through the Texan plains, his horse's hooves striking fear into the hearts of anyone who heard them. To this day, legends say that if you hear hoofbeats in the distance, it might just be El Muerto, riding to settle unfinished scores. The sight of the headless horseman was said to bring certain doom, or at the very least, a stroke of exceedingly bad luck. If you saw him, you could expect a visit from the Grim Reaper, or so the tales went. In 1917, a couple traveling in a covered wagon toward San Diego, Texas, decided to set up camp outside the town for the night. As they enjoyed the warmth of their campfire, they were startled by the sudden appearance of a large gray stallion galloping past, ridden by a headless figure shouting, "It is mine! It is all mine!" The eerie sight sent chills down their spines, leaving them rattled long after the figure had disappeared into the night. The legend persisted, and decades later, in 1969, reports of the Headless Horseman resurfaced near Freer, Texas, continuing the lore of this spectral rider who roamed the Texan plains, seeking to reclaim what he believed was his. Number 7. The Death Ship of the Platte River. The tale of the Death Ship began during the 1800s, a time when the gold rush beckoned countless travelers, pioneers, and traders to the west. The Platte River was a vital route, and it was on this river that an infamous steamboat known as Lady Luck, or as others whispered, the Devil's Own, was said to have sailed. Unlike ordinary steamboats, this vessel was believed to be cursed from the start. It was said that the ship was loaded with gold, supplies, and a peculiar crew of eccentric characters. But strange things began to happen aboard. Freak storms, mysterious fires, and eerie happenings plagued the ship, making it seem as though the very river was conspiring against them. One fateful day, the ship vanished without a trace. No wreckage was ever found, yet rumors persisted. Locals claimed to see a ghostly glow on the water and hear the distant, haunting laughter of the doomed crew carried by the wind. As the legend goes, when the ghostly ship emerges from a strange mist that quickly turns into a dense fog, the sails and masts are covered in frost, and the frosted-over crew stands solemnly around a covered body on the deck. The sight is unsettling, but it's the identity of the body that chills onlookers to the core. It's always someone the witness knows. The first sighting happened in 1862 when a trapper named Leon Weber saw the ship and recognized the body as his own. He died later that day. Another sighting occurred in 1887 when a cattleman named Gene Wilson saw the ship and recognized the body as his wife's. She passed away within hours. In 1903, a man named Victor Hibby, while chopping wood near the river, spotted the ship and saw the body of a close friend on the deck. His friend, too, perished later that day. Number 8. The Phantom Train of Marshall Pass. High in the mountains of Colorado, at 10,140 feet above sea level, lies Marshall Pass, a key route in the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad. In its time, the pass was an engineering marvel, cutting through treacherous terrain to connect the east with the untamed west. But the journey through the pass was anything but easy. The unpredictable weather and steep icy tracks made for a perilous ride, and the workers tasked with maintaining the line often faced life-threatening conditions. Engineer Nelson Edwards was one such man, navigating his train through the snow-covered tracks of the pass when something strange happened. As his locomotive chugged along, he became aware of another train rapidly approaching from behind, its light flashing through the falling snow, its wheels screeching on the rails as it barreled toward him at breakneck speed. Panicked, Edwards slammed the brakes, bringing his train to a sudden halt. But when he looked back, there was no train in sight. The tracks were empty. No crash, no wreckage, nothing. The next day, Edwards received a mysterious letter recounting a tragic train wreck that had occurred years earlier in the same spot. Shaken by the coincidence, he retired on the spot, leaving behind the haunted tracks of Marshall Pass. Number 9. The Bandit Ghoul of 6 Mile Canyon. In the mid-19th century, 6 Mile Canyon, just outside Virginia City, Nevada, was notorious for stagecoach robberies, shootouts, and lawlessness. One of the most feared outlaws of the time was a man known only as Big Jack. He was as slippery as a snake, evading capture time and time again, until his luck finally ran out. In a bloody showdown with law enforcement, Big Jack met his end. But his story didn't end with his death. Locals soon began reporting strange sightings in the canyon. Flickering lights, the sound of spurs jingling in the wind, and eerie, disembodied laughter echoing off the canyon walls. Some even claimed that Big Jack's ghost continued to rob stagecoaches, his spectral form stalking the same roads he had terrorized in life. One of the most chilling encounters involved a group of miners who swore they had been robbed by the ghostly figure of Big Jack. When they awoke the next morning, they found their stolen goods arranged in a pattern that spelled out one word: gotcha. Number 10. Haunted Jesse James Farm. Nestled in Kearney, Missouri, the Jesse James Farm is more than just a historic site. It's a place where the past refuses to rest. The notorious outlaw Jesse James, famous for his daring bank heists and stagecoach robberies, once called this farm home. It was here that he sought refuge from his life of crime, a peaceful retreat from the dangers of the outlaw's life. But Jesse's peace was short-lived. In 1882, he was betrayed by Bob Ford, a member of his own gang, who shot Jesse in the back of the head while he was dusting a picture on the wall. With Jesse's violent death came the birth of new legends surrounding his farm. Visitors to the Jesse James farm today report eerie experiences, cold spots that appear out of nowhere, the sensation of being watched, and strange noises that echo through the old house. But the most famous tale is that of Jesse James's ghost. Sightings of Jesse's spirit are common, with some claiming to see him wandering the grounds, his spectral figure dressed in the same clothes he wore on the day he died. Others report hearing the faint sound of horses' hooves outside the house, as if Jesse is riding back to his old hideout, forever tied to the farm where his story ended. These ghostly encounters have made the Jesse James farm a hot spot for paranormal enthusiasts, adding to the outlaw's already larger-than-life legacy. From ghostly apparitions to cursed ships and phantom trains, the Wild West is filled with stories that blur the line between reality and the supernatural. Whether it's the ghost of a long-dead bandit or the sight of a headless horseman galloping through the night, these tales have captivated imaginations for generations. They serve as a reminder that the West was not just a place of adventure and danger, but also one of mystery, where the unknown lurked around every corner, waiting to reveal its secrets. Jesse James's farm in Kearney, Missouri, was supposed to be his sanctuary, a quiet retreat where the infamous outlaw could finally escape the chaos of his life and enjoy a measure of peace. After years of living on the run, robbing banks, staging daring heists, and becoming one of the most wanted men in America, Jesse sought solace at his family farm. It was meant to be a place where he could leave behind the dangers of his outlaw life, kick up his boots, and live out his days in calm obscurity. But for a man like Jesse James, peace was always elusive, and his end would be just as dramatic as the life he had led. In 1882, at the age of 34, Jesse James met his untimely demise, not at the hands of lawmen or rival gangs, but through the betrayal of one of his own. Bob Ford, a member of Jesse's own gang, shot him in the back of the head while he stood on a chair, dusting a picture on the wall. It was a cowardly act that shocked the nation, and while Jesse's death marked the end of his life, it was just the beginning of the legends that would haunt his beloved farm. The farm that was supposed to be his peaceful refuge quickly became something else entirely, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead seemed thinner than ever. From that moment on, the Jesse James farm took on a life of its own, steeped in ghost stories and eerie encounters that have persisted for generations. Today, the Jesse James farm is not just a historical landmark. It's a place where visitors come not only to learn about the infamous outlaw, but also to experience the strange and unexplainable. Those who step foot on the property often report a sudden chill in the air, cold spots that seem to appear out of nowhere, sending shivers down their spines even on the warmest days. Others have described the unsettling sensation of being watched, as if the spirit of Jesse James himself still roams the grounds, keeping a close eye on those who dare to trespass on his land. Then there are the noises, mysterious sounds that echo through the old farmhouse late at night. Doors creak open and slam shut without explanation. Footsteps are heard in empty hallways, and whispers seem to drift through the walls, though no one can ever pinpoint where they're coming from. Some say it's the wind, but others believe it's something far more supernatural. Of all the ghostly tales that surround the Jesse James farm, the most famous, of course, is the story of Jesse James's own restless spirit. Visitors and staff alike have reported seeing a figure that resembles Jesse wandering the property, his unmistakable form dressed in the same clothes he wore on the day he died. His ghost has been seen near the very spot where he was betrayed, standing silently as if replaying that fateful moment over and over again. Some have even claimed to hear the faint sound of horses' hooves in the distance, as if Jesse is riding back to his old hideout, forever bound to the place he called home. But the ghostly sightings aren't limited to just Jesse himself. Some believe that members of his gang, those who once rode with him and shared in his infamous exploits, also haunt the farm, Shadows have been seen moving in the darkness, figures that disappear as soon as they're approached. The feeling of being watched is constant, as if the spirits of Jesse's old comrades are still lurking in the background, guarding their leader's final resting place. Then there are the objects that move on their own. Staff at the farm have reported finding furniture mysteriously shifted from one side of the room to the other, as if some unseen force had been at work during the night. Books fall from shelves without reason, and pictures hanging on the walls have been known to tilt or even drop to the floor, with no one nearby to touch them. But perhaps the most chilling of all is the tale of the ghostly horse that many claim to have seen galloping across the property late at night. Witnesses describe a large, dark horse, its hooves pounding against the ground with a thundering sound. Yet when they go to investigate, the horse vanishes without a trace. Some believe it's the spirit of Jesse's trusted steed, still carrying him across the fields in death as it did in life. Others think it's a harbinger, a sign that the outlaw's spirit is nearby, watching over his land. One particular ghost story that has captured the imaginations of many is the tale of a young boy who visited the farm with his family. As the story goes, the boy wandered off on his own, exploring the old farmhouse while his parents spoke with the tour guide. When they finally found him, the boy seemed unusually quiet, almost as if he were in a trance. When asked what was wrong, he simply pointed to a corner of the room and said, "The man told me to stay here." His parents looked, but saw no one. The boy later described the man in detail, a man who, by all accounts, matched the description of Jesse James. This incident left the family shaken, and they left the farm as soon as possible. But they weren't the first to encounter something strange at the Jesse James farm, and they certainly wouldn't be the last. The stories of Jesse James's ghostly presence continue to attract visitors from all over the world, drawn not only by the farm's rich history, but also by the promise of encountering the paranormal. Ghost hunters in particular have made the Jesse James farm a frequent stop on their investigations. Equipped with cameras, EVP electronic voice phenomena recorders, and other tools of the trade, they comb the property in search of evidence that the infamous outlaw is still hanging around. Many claim to have captured strange voices on their recordings, whispers, faint murmurs, and even the sound of a man's voice calling out in the night. Others have photographed strange orbs of light, unexplained figures, and shadowy apparitions that seem to move through the walls of the old house. But not every encounter at the Jesse James farm is sinister. Some visitors describe their experiences as more peaceful, even comforting. They believe that Jesse's spirit is simply watching over the place he once called home, not out of malice, but out of a deep connection to the land and the life he led there. For them, encountering Jesse's ghost is less about fear and more about a brush with history, a chance to come face to face with one of the most notorious figures of the American frontier. Still, the eerie feeling of the farm can't be denied. Even those who don't believe in ghosts can't help but feel a sense of unease when they visit. The weight of history is heavy in the air, and the tragic end of Jesse James lingers like a shadow over every room in the farmhouse. Whether or not you believe in the supernatural, there's no denying that the Jesse James farm is a place unlike any other, where the past is never truly gone, and where the boundary between the living and the dead seems just a little bit thinner. As you walk through the halls where Jesse once walked, stand on the spot where he was betrayed, and gaze out at the fields where his ghost is said to roam, you can't help but wonder, what if the stories are true? What if Jesse James is still here, watching, waiting, and guarding his legacy from beyond the grave?